I had this belief, this faith that I could do something special. If that's the truth and this is my reality, then I need to make something of it. So, of course, being blind and deaf, I did what anybody in my situation would do and started a chocolate company. It was one of those things where I didn't want to stay idle. My now wife said she noticed two things. One, the fudge was just piling up. And two, I had a smile on my face. No matter what we encounter, it might be harder to do, but couldn't just say, oh, I left that tool behind, mission's over. I'm still a dad, still a husband, still this entrepreneur, I've still got a job to do.
Today, we speak with Aaron Hale, a former military EOD technician who lost both his sight and his hearing in service. So he went on, though, to build a successful fudge company. He went on to climb mountains while breaking records at the same time, and also inspiring thousands and thousands of people through his speaking and his growing social media presence. His story is one of resilience, reinvention that will challenge everything that you think is possible. If you're new to this channel, this show exists to provide clarity for 100,000 mission-driven entrepreneurs and their brands so that we together can create an impact for eternity. So if you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button, which will continue to help us build this community. Now let's get into this interview with Aaron Hale. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. As usual, I am joined by a fascinating, inspiring individual here by the name of Aaron Hale. We just kismet met through the interwebs. We started talking, and Aaron is a fascinating person with a story that is going to shock, amaze, and inspire you. Because he's done so much, he's experienced so much. I didn't realize this, Aaron, but when we were talking, you know, you're pretty famous. And I was watching today or the other day a clip, or it was a story on you via NBC. And man, they did a wonderful job. It's short. Maybe there's a long version, but you know, they came to you and your family and they interviewed you, and then they put all the clips of you working in your chocolate company, all those things we can get into. But I just wanted to welcome you to the show, brother.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the invite. The clip on NBC, was that, I'm not trying to recall. I don't
it was a few years ago.
Famous, but I did get on Rachel Ray once. That was
Rachel
cool.
Ray. I got to find that one. But this one so the title of it, you know, of course it's clickbaity for them. It's From Army Bomb Tech to Candy Expert, TikTok's famous Aaron Hale. And I was like, oh, well, look, Aaron's all over the place. I know Aaron. I consider him a friend.
Cool.
But yeah, so dude, I just want to honor you, you know, for your service. Thank you so much for everything you've done. Let's get into that, dude. Let's get into your eureka moment, which, you know, caused a major change and pivot in your life and created business out of it as well. But yeah. So let's start there with your eureka.
My life, you know, direction is more like a ping pong ball. I was kind of a goofball in school. Didn't really have a whole lot of ambition. So didn't make it very far in college. Kind of went looking for Animal House and found it. Made it myself. And then when that didn't work out, I joined the military. And it was going to be like 4 years and out. And then 8 years later, I'm loving life and, you know, it's great. I joined the Navy as a cook. And worked my way up to being the personal chef for a 3-star admiral, and spent 4 years in Italy, which was definitely not a hardship duty. But I joined in 1999. And then before I knew it, there were 2 wars going on in the Middle East. And, well, I say I've got my intrinsic values, the stuff I sought out internally to get from out of the military. You learn how to take pride in achievement hard work, for hard work's sake, that kind of stuff, work ethics, waking up before noon. And I accidentally picked up these external values, like, duty, pride, and, teamwork, and serving, something bigger than yourself. So when, these wars were kicking off and I'm on board a ship cooking for the admiral, and, I loved being in the Navy. I loved cooking. I was getting kind of bored with Navy cooking, but it wasn't that I was getting bored. I loved it. I loved living in Italy and all of that. But it wasn't aligned with my skills, those values, and I felt like there was much more potential for me, and I could serve better. So I did deploy to Afghanistan. I actually volunteered to run an army chow hall out there, and went from cooking for the admiral and his 25, 35 top brass to hundreds of NATO troops. And that's when I met some EOD techs, explosive ordnance disposal. And these guys are the guys that run into danger when everybody else is trying to get out. They're the military's bomb squad. So I jumped ship, so to speak. Went over to the Army, changed uniforms, became an EOD technician. I tell people, once I got my first confirmed kill with an egg roll, I wanted to start saving lives instead. But so I became an EOD tech, and I was working on IEDs, roadside bombs, unexploded ordnance, just dropped, buried, thrown, anything that goes boom on the battlefield. That's my job. And I deployed again to Iraq, and then once more back to Afghanistan, this time as an EOD team leader, the guy that gets in that big, like, spacesuit looking thing and makes the long walk. And 8 months into that deployment is when I got injured.
I mean, holy moly, you see it in the movies. That's to us regular civilians, it's something that 99.9% of people would never do. What was the story? On
the particular day that I was injured, I wasn't in the bomb suit. I was working on a roadside bomb. It was a pressure plate and a jug, like a vegetable oil jug full of homemade explosives, and a 9-volt battery just connected by lamp cord. Very simple. And very effective. Because they just littered them everywhere. And one guy, a Marine, said where we were working, every step was a deliberate act. We actually had the robot go first and had it separated, ripped the pressure plate, just a couple pieces of plywood, and ripped that away. So we essentially I had this thing dismantled, rendered safe, so to speak, and there was no reason, no call for getting into the bomb suit. It would actually have been overkill and a waste of time. So I walked down to grab evidence, and about 20 or 30 yards from the primary, there was a secondary device, one that hadn't been detected yet. And that's what the blast it punted me into the air. And the funny part, though, it was interesting, I guess, not so much funny, but it hit me just in the head. I was virtually untouched from the neck down. And us Hale boys, we really do have very dense skulls. So this is a perfect place to hit me. But it cracked my skull in a few places. I was leaking spinal fluid right out my nose. It blew up my eardrums, but I could still hear at the time. I just lost some of that hearing. And of course, it took both of my eyes.
It's hard to even imagine. It's a blessing and a curse, right? I mean, you have your full body intact. You're very good shape. Most people would. They would die for a body. You're very, very fit, which is fantastic that the bomb did not affect you in that way. But then eventually, I know you want to potentially share here because people don't realize this, and I'm going to share this in the intro as well, that not only did you lose your eyesight, but later you lost your hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that was almost 4 years later. The cracks in my sinuses, cracks in my skull, they patched them up. They actually did what's called an encephalocele, where they take a piece of the septum, the cartilage, and use that to wad up the cracks. And I guess it had either not been completely patched, or it had come open again because I was leaking fluid, that CSF, cerebral spinal fluid. It was a very slow leak, but it was still an opening, and a path out is a pathway in. And about 4 years later, I contracted bacterial meningitis. So I was right back in the hospital, and I came closer to dying from that bacteria than I did from the blast. In the process, it stole what was left of my hearing that the blast hadn't taken.
You explained to me before in another conversation we had, how you hear, because I was so fascinated. Like, you have a podcast, you have a personal brand, you have a company, you don't shy away from social media and obviously news and stories. How most people who have all of their faculties don't do, and you're inspiring, man. You're inspiring people, like, hey, Aaron, look at Aaron, he's doing it. He's rocking it out. There's really no excuse for, especially people who have businesses. It's really almost critical for you to have any success in a business by putting your voice out there, putting your name out there. But if you can explain to the audience, just so that they know, and I apologize if you're tired of telling these stories, we're going to move on. But how you hear, and it's fascinating to hear you describe it.
Yeah, well, you said the stuff that I'm doing. I really hate being bored, right? Idle. Yeah. So I can hear because now my eyes are gone. These are prosthetics. These are totally fake. My ears, they're turned off. These don't work anymore. The only reason I can communicate with the outside world is through this one cochlear implant. And it's not a hearing aid. And it doesn't take audio and amplify it down the ear canal, because that wouldn't do anything for me. It actually takes that audio from the microphone on the processor outside, and it sends it through this magnetized tether right to the implant that's got like an electrode connected to my auditory nerve. Without this thing right here, I'd be pulling the full Helen Keller. Now it's kind of like trying to figure out what's going on in the kitchen through the drive-through speaker, but it's way better than the alternative. Yeah.
What I love about you, Aaron, is you haven't lost your sense of humor, right? You're always super optimistic whenever we jam and talk. You're so inspiring, dude. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, because it's a big part of your story, and I'm sure people will benefit greatly from how inspiring that is for you to just I'm sure there were times, and if you want to talk about, how did you get out of that? Because most people would fall into that pity party, like, woe is me, why me, God, why me? You managed to climb out of that if you were in there. How did you manage that? And you've got so much going on that's super exciting. I want to talk about your businesses and your family and your just everything that you're doing. But yeah, how do you inspire others to not, think of life as it's over for me, and they have everything. They have their sight, they have their hearing, they have their health.
Well, the truth is, I hate, like I said, I hate being bored. But it really does come down to that because, yes, there were two major instances, times, frames of, times in my life where it was a really low place. I lost my eyesight, going 100% blind, and also with added that bonus gift of a sleep disorder because I couldn't reset my circadian rhythm, that internal clock. So it's kind of like living on a 26-hour clock. So that not fun, and having to deal with completely changed the entire trajectory of my life. I was a service member. I was bomb squad, and I was doing a life. I was in a life of service, and I loved what I was doing. The technical job, the brotherhood, all of that, saving lives. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't see, and all those dark thoughts, no pun intended. Why me? What if I did this or that? And then I can't do this. And why is this happening to me? And all that stuff. And I was sitting there in the hospital bed realizing that none of those questions have any answer. And they just kind of led me to this, like a downward spiral. It was like a cul-de-sac in my mind where there was no escape. So I had to start changing the questions. Instead of why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? And instead of I can't, how can I? And it came down to that thing. Well, okay, I could sit here and cry, or I can learn how to deal with it and figure out how to live the best life I can. And after getting out of the hospital the first time and learning how to be blind, like live as a blind person, use that white cane and the accessible text-to-speech software, stuff like that. Then it was, okay, like you said, like to stay fit. Well, how do I even get to the gym, or how do I run? I mean, they fed me like I was going through SEAL training at the hospital. I couldn't believe how much food they were giving me, and I gained a lot of weight. So I wanted to go for a run. Well, how do you even do that? And so I figured this out. And one of the things I'd learned that was kind of tough is that everything kind of became a team sport, even lacing up and going for a run. But then again, everything in my life became a team sport, which is great. So there's two sides of the coin. So I tend to just gravitate towards the more positive, optimistic side of that coin, fully recognizing the other side there. And that's the point. That's the difference between the toxic positivity and just being positive. Because I prefer the positivity over the negativity. I recognize it. So I started running, and started running further and further, and registered for a bunch of marathons. Started climbing mountains, joined an all-veteran team, all-wounded veteran team up a 19,000-foot peak in the Peruvian Andes, whitewater kayaking, all this stuff. And I started speaking and telling the story and feeling happy despite going blind. And I was accomplishing things not despite the blindness, but probably because of it. And then I say, God must have like the soldier's sarcastic, sardonic type of sense of humor, like me. So he's like, you're doing pretty well. Do it again. And one day I contracted that bacterial meningitis. I was back in the hospital. And then when I left the hospital, I was now blind and deaf. The doctor, as the the hearing was leaving me, the doctor was breaking the news, and I said, "So you're telling me, Doc, that I'm going to be 100% blind and 100% deaf for the rest of my life? So I'm never going to have to pretend to pay attention ever again?" Silver lining to everything. I blame the near deafness, but I did not hear my girlfriend, my wife now, or my mom, who were both in the room, laugh. But anyways, yeah, humor has gotten me through a lot of the difficult times. I'm losing all the other senses. My sense of humor is sharper than ever. But I got home, and also the deafness, it also came with a bonus gift. I also lost the inner ear gyro, the vestibular balance. So I came home in a wheelchair. I couldn't even get on my treadmill because it felt like somebody was going to steal that out from under me. And I had to hold on to the towel bar because I would fall off the toilet. So that was tough. And again, I was in that bad place, I call them my demons, the negative talk. When have I paid my dues? Why me again, right? Haven't I sacrificed enough? Of course, all the wrong questions. And I remembered, that turning, why is this happening to me, into why is this happening for me? And then I remembered that, I was a speaker, and this could be something. This was another teachable moment. So it turned the why is this happening to me into why is this happening for me? And then I modified it a little bit to why is this happening for me so that I can teach others? And it gave me an immediate purpose, an immediate way to change the entire perspective of what was going on. Instead of being a victim, now I had a mission. I had a puzzle to solve. And I needed to figure out how to live my life in an entirely new way all over again.
You know me, Aaron. We've had some lengthy conversations. Faith plays a very strong role in my life, and I can only imagine during those dark times, were you leaning into any of that? Were you speaking or trying to, or contact him in some way, shape, or form? How did that, if it did at all, play a role to find that positive outcome and be optimistic?
I remember, I always forget the name of an admiral who was a POW during Vietnam. And there's a paradox named after him, and I forget the name. But he said, they would ask him, and it was the same thing that Dr. Viktor Frankl noticed in the concentration camps. How did you know when somebody, who was going to make it and who wouldn't in there? And it was the hopeful, which is kind of a paradox, right? But it was the people that had this blind hope. They would say the Americans are coming to save us by Easter. And Easter will come and go. Well, they're going to come and save us by the 4th of July. And the 4th of July will come and go. And they would do this. Christmas would come and go. New Year's come and go. And finally, they would give up hope. And the light would just drain out of them. But the ones that made it, they were the ones that had that steadfast, optimism faith in a good outcome, but with one foot still planted in reality of today. So I had this belief that my life had meaning. I had this belief, this faith that I could do something special, and I could make a mark, and I could make an impact in this world. So if that's the truth, and right now, today, this is my reality, then I need to make something of it. So, of course, being blind and deaf and have sleep disorder and poor balance and generally attention deficit, I did what anybody in my situation would do and started a chocolate company.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk about that, but I want to rewind so people know in terms of the timeline, and this is just clarifying, and correct me if I'm wrong. You weren't married and you didn't have a family yet. Your beautiful family, four children. Is that correct?
Actually, I don't talk about it a whole lot. But yes, when I was injured in Afghanistan, yes, I was married and I had a son. And after I got out of the hospital, I went through a divorce and a very nasty custody battle. But then I also, during that, in between all of this stuff, I also met my wife after the divorce and got married. One custody of my firstborn, had identical twins, boys, because of course I shouldn't be the only one who's confused. But yeah, so that's a definite major aspect of this whole thing is this pride in being a father and a husband and trying to do my best and having that purpose behind it, showing my boys that their dad can still do anything, and so can they, no matter what the challenges lie ahead.
Yeah, what a strong role model. I am sure that you are, as they watch you through challenges, they see you evolve and grow. Man, you're going to have some amazing young men in your life and in your wife's life to just be proud of, right? And to be inspired by. So, I know you don't talk about it much, but it's inspiring for me to see you persevere and to see you lead in the way that you do, especially by your example. So it's not easy to run a company with all your faculties. I mean, dude, there's been times where I wanted to quit and thought it was all over. How and what inspired you to start a chocolate company?
Well, first, I don't want to get me wrong or to misspoken. I don't talk about the divorce and the custody battle all that much. It was a difficult time also, but it's more out of respect for my oldest son. But I love talking about my family. I love talking about my boys, my wife, my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister. I love talking about all the support and the love that they've given me, and how they are a part of, instead of having that work-life balance thing where it's one or the other, it's all intertwined. So the fudge company, it was one of those things where I didn't want to stay idle. I needed something to do. And I was going through that second major pivot point, the catalyst moment in my life where it was that negative talk. I was actually sitting in my breakfast bar and holding on to the counter so I wouldn't fall off the stool, and just all that stuff going through my head. And Thanksgiving was coming soon, and I decided that I was gonna do something. We were gonna throw this huge Thanksgiving feast, invite family from all over the country, all that kind of stuff. And I started cooking. Weeks in advance, actually. I was making breads and cakes, pies, cookies, all that kind of stuff, and just freeze it, bring it out on the day. And I started making fudge. Wasn't even a huge fan of fudge, and so I had to fix the recipe. I make it so I like it. And I would make a batch of fudge, and then, you know what, I'll try a different flavor. And then I'd do one, the next, scoot it to the side, put it in the freezer, whatever. And then I was throwing some spices, throwing some nuts, maybe a little alcohol, dump it in the, and my wife, my now wife, said she noticed two things. One was the fudge was just piling up. And two, I had a smile on my face. And for the piling up fudge, she started sneaking it out the front door. I'd say sneaking, like you got to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy. But she would take it and just give it away. Neighbors, friends, whatever. And people started coming back and asking if they could buy some for a baby shower, birthday, or whatever. And the capitalist in me said, well, of course you may. And all of a sudden we had this fudge company, Extraordinary Delights, or EODfudge.com. And that's how that got started. It was out of kitchen therapy.
Mm. And what, I'm sure this wasn't by design, but you became like a TikTok sensation as a result of this too. That's free marketing. So yeah, I mean, how did that happen? Was it one of your kids? Was it your wife? Who turned it? Who?
That was actually, again, boredom. And my wife, being a little bit younger than me, is far more savvy with the TikToks and stuff. And I think it was actually COVID, the lockdowns, early times where we were all just kind of trapped in the house, going stir crazy. And she put a phone in front of my face and said, "Start talking." And well, given my limited input, I've got kind of an overdeveloped output. I started talking, and then it turned into kitchen hacks and daily. Sometimes it was just me talking about my service, or me talking about how I get around accessibility tools, that kind of stuff, and cooking recipes. Yeah, so we would just make one a day. And sometimes we would batch 3-4 different videos and then release them every day. But it certainly took off. I think within a year or so, we had 150,000 followers. And then, of course, the COVID time passed. We're in Florida, so it didn't last as long as maybe the rest of the country. And real life started, so it didn't give as much attention to producing these long drawn out. You would be amazed at how long it takes to make a 60-second cooking show.
Yeah.
But we started getting into some other stuff, but it certainly was it was fun, and it certainly helped the sales of the fudge company.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm guessing you are not operating it out of your kitchen anymore, right? It's more of a legitimate full operation.
Yeah,
Is that close to home?
Yeah, we found a commercial food kitchen, larger candy company that makes chocolates and fudge and all that, and they took our recipes, my recipes, and they do all of the HR, all of the logistics, all the ordering, all the cooking, all of the packaging and shipping. And the home kitchen was more of that studio, and the R&D lab. So that was great because in the first couple of years when we were doing it all ourselves, that was a lot of cooking, and it was me cooking and Michaela, cutting the fudge into those little bricks and packaging and shipping them off. It was very time consuming. Now it's a lot of work for us, and of course, OSHA doesn't like it when you run the Hershey's out of your residential kitchen. So we had to find a commercial place, but it was one of those things where it was a decision tree. Do we want to go brick and mortar, or do we want to go more e-commerce? And me standing, in front of a stove or behind a register all day was kind of my version of hell. So we went the e-commerce route, and I love cooking. I love making recipes, doing that R&D, and making my boys guinea pigs. They don't mind it either.
It's good that everyone's staying fit with all that sugar and fudge floating around.
I don't know. It's like the chicken or egg thing. If I eat so much chocolate because I run a lot and I need the calories, or I run so much because I eat so much fudge. I don't know.
That's fun though. What are you guys doing in terms of, you say you do e-com? Is it a nationwide thing, or do you get shipments out globally as well? Where's the majority of your sales take place?
Right now, we ship to the contiguous 48 because it's perishable. There's not a ton of we don't put preservatives and that kind of stuff in there. It's more of a luxury brand that we really can't guarantee the shipping quality overseas. So it's more of a perishable. So we'll ship it, especially in the warmer months. It's got to go 1 or 2 day air, and because we put insulated packaging, dry ice, all of that, so you don't get fudge sauce when it arrives.
Yeah, I'm looking at your website. Anybody who's curious, eodfudge.com. You're making me hungry. I haven't eaten yet today. But yeah, it's great, dude. It's so inspiring. Let's get into some of the topics that are hallmarks to the show. And I know we talked a lot about your experience in the military and how it led you to what you're doing today. But any lessons that you want to share in what we call embracing the F word, not kind of fudge. Yeah. Not fudge. But yeah, embracing the F word, meaning failure. What are things that have happened that you like, wow, that sucked, but I learned a valuable lesson out of that?
Yeah. Well, my whole life is about bouncing from one failure to the next. It's like, what do they say? Fail up. And I'm constantly making mistakes. In fact, I don't know why they did this, but for some reason, my house has a smoke detector right above the stove. But it used to freak the boys out, and now it's just the dinner bell. Speaking of failures, but no, Dad's done with dinner. But the truth is, I just wasn't afraid to go ahead and get my hands dirty. And there's a point, going back to a lesson I learned in the military, EOD, is that there is no safe operation, especially when you're working with explosives. But the very first thing we learn in EOD school are all the safeties, all the ways to recognize all the different ways we can get killed. So the very first thing we do on any operation is list all the ways we're going to observe those dangers. And we try to mitigate it all the best we can, but then at some point, you can't make it perfectly safe. So you still got to go do the job. And for me, it was, I think it was General Mattis in his book Call Sign Chaos. He said things being hard were never a good reason for mission failure. Right? So for me, it was leaving some tools behind on mission. Each team, EOD team, gets the whole shipping container full of tools for everything from nuclear weapons down to bullets, everything that goes boom. But when you get on the battlefield and you get that armored truck, you can't fit half that stuff in there. So you do kind of a triage on what you're most likely going to encounter on the, in that area of operation, that AO. You leave some tools behind. And then when I was in Afghanistan, there weren't any roads. So we couldn't drive. We had to go dismount on foot. So it was what we could bring, what we could carry on our backs. And we still got a job to do. No matter what we encounter, it might be harder to do without a certain tool, but we couldn't just say, oh, I left that tool behind. Mission's over, right? We quit. No, still got a job to do. And today, I'm still a dad. I'm still a husband. I'm still this entrepreneur. I've still got a job to do. So when something fails, something, doesn't work, my eyesight, my hearing, well, it gets harder, but I learn new tactics, new techniques. I find new tools. I get help, right? From my team, my family, around. I ask, learn how to ask for help and figuring things out. And I drive forward. So, failure, it's like, they say, there's a lot more, there's a lot of information in pain if you're willing to learn. So every time I run into a pain point, point of failure, I at least try to find a way to learn from it, so I don't fail that same way again.
I love that analogy, leaving the tools behind. Thank you for that. Man, you're such an inspiration, brother. There's so much I want to continue tackling here, but I want to be respectful of your time. I love continuing to jam with you. What's on your heart now? What are you currently building or excited for that you could share with the audience?
Well, we of course, since we don't do any of that nasty labor part of the fudge business, and we're generally just marketing that now and coming up with new flavors, we were able to redirect our attention. We're big fans of real estate investing, so we do fixer-uppers into short-term rentals, and we're loving that. We've got that in 2 different states and other real estate projects. My wife is a licensed agent in the Florida Panhandle, and I am, I love to talk, so I do speaking around the country and internationally, and I have a podcast of my very own, The Point of Impact with Aaron Hale, and that's where I'm really throwing my passion into, getting the word out, trying to inspire others to get through their pain points, to find their authentic selves and live the best life so that they can give their best.
I love it, dude. As I said multiple times, you're an inspiration, brother. What's the best way that people can reach out to you if they want to book you on their show, have you speak on a stage? Where can they go?
They can go to pointofimpactpod.com, and they can find me on all the major podcast platforms.
Awesome, brother. Thanks so much, man. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation, developing a relationship. And yeah, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. You're inspiring.
Thanks for the invite. Love talking to you.
If you were inspired or you learned something new today, please give us a like or a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. If you want to learn more about how to build your YouTube channel, your personal brand or podcast, hit us up at info@onairbrands.com. That's info@onairbrands.com so that we can find ways that we can help you. I'm Erik Cabral, and I hope that I added value in your life today.